Welcome to the Podcasting Podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Edward Benton, and welcome to the podcast where I podcast about podcasting. Today, we're going to be talking about uncertainty in podcasting, which is a real thing all of the time. It's true for any sort of creative endeavor, any sort of endeavor at all, because uncertainty is the fundamental nature of reality, right? We have no actual certainty about just about anything in life, except death, as we're told. Although none of us have actually, or like I have never experienced death, which is a whole other rabbit hole we could go into if we want to get really philosophical about it. But I want to talk about uncertainty because this is something that's been really plaguing me a lot lately and how to navigate it, and I want to talk about it. With podcasting, there's so many unknowns that you're doing, right? You start off and you have this idea and you're excited and you want to go create this thing and you want to share your ideas, you want to interview cool guests, you want to do all this stuff. But then there's this part where you have no idea if it's going to work. And unless you're maybe really successful off the bat or you already have a large audience and platform, you really don't know if you're going the right direction, or at least I haven't known if I'm going in the right direction. That's been like a really big challenging piece because on one hand, my YouTube channel is growing more than it's ever grown, which is awesome. And thank you to the 40 of you who signed up. Like basically 25% of my current audience has signed up in the last like 30 days, which is amazing. And it's like, okay, is that just because I'm doing shorts? Is doing shorts like going to ultimately limit my channel because then they won't stay for the longer episode, or are they actually interested in the show? Why do certain metrics go the way that they go, and then you don't know if you're getting the views that you want? It just gets really tricky. And uncertainty is just part of it. And a lot of what I've been doing lately is like wanting to reevaluate who I am, what I'm doing, am I going in the right direction with the show or not? Like for example, my show is called Getting to Know You, and I interview unique guests with unique perspectives, and I have a neurodivergent audience, and like all this stuff. And like at the same time, I can start to feel like really pigeonholed. And when I started this show, I was really excited because I got to interview guests that I was just really excited about. I was really curious about. And like when I listen to people like Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan, that's a lot of what they talk about is like following that deep level of curiosity. And yet, I can do that and feel like, well, you're not like paying enough attention to the audience, you're not doing this. And it can be very like disorienting because on one hand, like they're right. Like you do want to figure out how do I like capture the audience's attention because I want to get more people to watch. Right. And there's like reason, and you can still get really interesting questions and things like from that. So it's not like an all bad thing, but like there's this interesting dance between, I guess, like strategy and surrender. I was talking with ChatGPT about this earlier prior to this episode to kind of brainstorm and stuff. And it asked me like, what do I think about what is better or what's led to better results, actual strategy or surrender? And I really have to sit with that because I think it's a combination of both. But I think it is like surrender, like when I'm more so, but I think they're both necessary. Like it's this combination, this hybrid where it's like aligned strategy. Surrendering to aligned strategy is almost like the right way of looking at it, where when I'm tapped into my highest self, for lack of a better word, when I'm living in the end of the vision that I believe in, when I'm coming from my heart, when I'm doing the work, when I'm living from a place of like possibility and high energy, rather than a place of collapsing in fear and shame and doubt spirals and not believing in myself, then I create better content. I ask the people I want to ask to come on the show. I show up the way I want to show up. I live the way that I live. I ask the questions I want to live. I share boldly about myself and move without shame. And that really makes me want to pivot into talking about shame, because I think that shame is something that actually holds a lot of podcasters and creatives back from doing things in so many different ways. It's like shame about our art, like talking about it, shame about putting it out there, shame about sharing it with other people. I know this is really big for me because I've been working with this coach and she's awesome. And we've been doing a lot of like shame practices to help me get through shame in like personal areas of my life. And in that, like, I have realized that the biggest shame that I have is actually having shame. So I'm talking about it publicly because it's one of the best ways to get rid of shame. But like, I am shamed about feeling shame, and I'm shamed about that leading me to like a lot of self-hatred. I can feel shame around like the way I can beat myself up, and it's just like it's not very pleasant. And I'm angry at myself for being angry, and then I go into these vicious cycles. And then it's like ugh, I don't like it. I don't like myself, and it becomes gross. Um, and learning to be okay with my shame, that I have a lot of shame, being okay with my insecurities, rather than being insecure about having insecurities is hard, and powerful. Because right now I feel probably the best I've ever felt in showing up here or on my podcast and stuff because I'm putting more of my authentic self out there with friends, with people, with lovers, with whoever it might be, so that I can be me. Because when I am me, um, and loving myself through things where I feel insecure, loving my parts of myself that want to hide or shrink or whatever that might be, I'm actually showing up more authentically. Almost rhymed, which is kind of fun. Um, and there's parts of myself that I still don't feel quite ready to share, and that's okay, right? Because it's like I can be okay with being afraid. Then I have desires that I want to create that I don't even feel comfortable talking about. Um, I've filmed a piece of content for something that like I don't think I might not ever show somebody, but I made it because it's like kind of living in this vision that I believe in that maybe I'm not ready for, what the world's not ready for, but it's something that like could really be cool at one point in my life. The time's not right now, but the time might come, and it's a fun thing to be living in that possibility in that dream world, which is like, I guess like one thing I want to share that's kind of a cool tip that's like helped me navigate all this stuff has been ChatGPT. I've been playing around with like 3 different GPTs in the last like 48 hours. My friend made a joke that like probably one of my perfect days is like waking up, playing video games, and then talking with ChatGPT, and that's like not untrue. I very much like talking with ChatGPT because it's such a good tool for like reflection and getting clarity on things and brainstorming and help pulling out your best self and like moving towards actions. I actually find it's like kind of not the best thing maybe necessarily for like content stuff. It just like I don't know. I don't like the way that it writes sometimes, and sometimes it just continues to take things into its own voice of mind. But side note, like one of the things it started doing was like really helping me crystallize my future vision and living into that. There's actually like a weirdly cool manifestation GPT that I found to be really powerful. Um, where at least from a feeling place, I was able to start tapping into this feeling of what it would be like to sort of already have that success and to live from that place, to think from that place, to act from that place, to feel myself from that place, and let guide the vision. Let that lead through. Let me move through shame. Be okay with my desires, not judge them, and breathe and live in that glorious space. Yeah, and that's been really helpful. I will just look up like manifesting GPT. I don't want to put a link in the comments. That's like authentic for me, so I don't really want to take the time to do that probably. But I think it's great. So do that. If you're doing that, um, I guess coming back to uncertainty, coming back to shame, um, these are things that are important to navigate because shame is a social construct. It is something that exists in order to help us stay alive and survive in the herd. And nobody ever created something meaningful by blending in with the herd. You've got to be willing to say the hard thing, to put yourself out there, to be risky, to be authentically you in a way that stands out. Because if you're just trying to fit in, especially if you're making art, especially making content, what's the point? The point is to make something unique and different that says something, that has a point of view, that has heart to it, that the others don't have. And so I encourage you with wherever you are to breathe through that uncertainty, find your authentic voice, and learn to love your shame. And that'll do for today's episode of the Podcasting Podcast. This has been a great episode. If you have any thoughts or comments below, or you want to talk about shame or uncertainty, hit me up in the comments, and make sure to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you on that next one. Ciao.